welcome to the Minute Doctor Who podcast.
Just 1 minute to talk about Doctor Who. Just 1 minute, or maybe two. Welcome to YouTube, we're talking Doctor Who. For you.
Hello everybody, and that was the voice of my wife Hannah, who I've been wanting to get on the show probably since we met, about getting on for 4 years ago almost.
I don't know, you're the one for dates.
Yeah, we met in 2014.
Okay.
I wanted to talk with Hannah about Doctor Who on the podcast because she's a bit of a fan too, has a very different history with the show to me. We are very similar in age, but me having got into Doctor Who during the wilderness years when it wasn't on telly, Hannah was busy, interested in different things, I think.
Yes.
Doctor Who really passed you by in the 90s, didn't it?
Yes, in fact, TV as a whole.
TV as a whole.
I've just read books, and not Doctor Who ones at that. I first came across it when, what's it called? Gas mask episode.
The Empty Child.
The Empty Child, thank you.
So Doctor Who came back with Christopher Eccleston.
And I heard vague things. I turned on the TV at some point, saw The Empty Child, and didn't watch any more Doctor Who for 3 years because it freaked me out.
Right. So, you don't like scary things?
No.
Right.
No, I came back to David Tennant era, loved it, and then went back and rewatched from the Christopher Eccleston.
So whereabouts in David Tennant did you pick up with Doctor Who?
The first whole series of any TV show that I ever watched was series 4. So David Tennant and
Catherine Tate, okay.
And I have rewatched every episode of that one, except, of course, for Midnight.
Because it's too scary?
Yes.
Okay. And what was it about Doctor Who at that point, in Series 4, that made you stick around?
Well, it combines my favourite things in a TV show, or it did, which is a fantasy element, so time travel, aliens, all of that kind of stuff I've always loved, and it combined David Tennant, who was funny and fun, and to be fair, my favourite pairing of David Tennant and Catherine Tate, because I loved you had a non-skinny, non-young, non-successful in the world's eyes, blah blah blah, woman on screen taking centre stage, making a real difference in storylines. I loved her development, and I loved the repartee that they had.
Right. And at what point did you then go back and catch up with Eccleston and David Tennant's first couple of years?
Probably mid-season 4. I probably went back. I had disposable income then, so I went and bought all the DVDs.
Right. Okay. So going back to those earlier things, obviously you didn't like the scariness of Empty Child, but what did you make of Christopher Eccleston and Billie Piper, Doctor and Rose?
I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoy it. I love it. I have, I can quote fair swathes of it, but I have never been a fan of the age difference, right? Rose is, supposed to be 17?
Maybe 19, I think.
19, okay, and the Doctor is supposed to be
900 and something.
There we go.
Possibly.
How is that ever a good idea? And why on earth does he entertain her in that? Because he should just be a grown-up. And I realise part of his fun is he's like an ancient child, and that's good fun, but seriously, no.
What about the age gap between him and Donna?
Well, yes, but that's not romantic, that's friendship.
See. Right, okay. So,
there's no harm in having friendships with people significantly older than you. It is a good thing.
Okay.
But it's another thing for them to allow you to sort of fall in love with them.
Right, okay.
That's different.
Can we not allow for a certain ignorance on the part, at least in his Eccleston incarnation, the Ninth Doctor, can we allow for a certain element of ignorance about what was going on from his point of view?
Yes, that's true.
Yes.
I'll let you have
It
that.
sort of then develops a bit through Tennant,
Yes.
where it's more obviously
romantic.
romantic.
And he's just being a bit of a pansy about it all, and
Right.
he won't even say that he loves her. And I mean, come on, like, act your age a little bit.
Right. Okay. And it, I suppose it becomes clear at the end of series 4 that the only reason that he won't allow himself to go for it is because she'll die and he'll carry on. And so once there's a kind of sort of human, mortal version of him, they can have a relationship.
We were saying that, so he's left a he does the regeneration into his hand, blah 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 blah.
Yeah. So there's a human, there's a mortal version of him.
There's a mortal version of him who still has all of his memories and all of that jazz.
That's true.
So it still doesn't solve the essential problem of that relationship, which I think is the age difference.
Okay.
But I mean, I still loved it. That aside, it was really good fun. Rose was a great companion.
Yeah.
Martha obviously let the side down. Can't be doing with her intakes of breath, which she does all the time, and they all sound the same.
Right, so can we clarify this?
Okay.
When you say Martha let the side down, are we talking about Freema Agyeman as an actress or Martha as a character?
Freema Agyeman as an actress.
Right, okay.
Because she had some really good stories.
Yeah.
Because they had Family of Blood, which, okay, scary, but really fun. Martha gets to do interesting things, and...
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So that is largely the RTD era. So we finished series 4, which is where you came in. Yeah. Donna gets her memories wiped, and then Tennant has his.
I cry for about 3 weeks because I love Donna so much.
And you didn't want her to lose all of that kind of growth that she'd had.
Because she lost all of her personal growth, and she was just going to go back to thinking that she was rubbish, and I was very sad about that.
Okay. So that's
seriously.
That.
Can't he just start dropping them back off at Earth like they used to?
Apparently not. So then we have the Tennant specials, which round out David Tennant, round out the Russell T Davies era.
He starts being he stops being fun and starts being a bit grandiose and a bit navel gazing. Oh, I don't want to go.
And again on the scary scale, you've still never watched Waters of Mars.
Okay, averagely, RTD era, you can do you can basically skip the scary bits because you know roughly where they're going to be time-wise, because you have your 5 minutes of something's not quite right, it's a little bit scary, it's lots of fun, and the last 5 minutes everything's resolved, and there's another 5 minutes of fear. But I used to kind of skip through nicely, and then you could watch the whole episode once you knew everything was going to be fine. And then you get things like Waters of Mars, which I just couldn't even find the fun bits.
Yeah.
That was just too scary.
Just too scary. And I suppose here I suppose we should bring up a crucial difference between me and Hannah. So when we first met, some of you will remember I did a hashtag on Twitter called I think it was hashtag 7 Doctor 7 Stories.
Yes.
And the idea is I wanted to canvass opinion of 7 stories, one for each Doctor, that I could lend to Hannah to kind of give her a sort of flavour of the classic series, because you hadn't seen any and you still haven't seen much.
No, I do want to. It's just time.
And I wrote you a little note in the front of each one.
Yes.
Being very careful not to give you any spoilers, because obviously I don't like spoilers about these things.
No.
I mean, I think I lent you Earthshock, which has a Cyberman on the front, so that was a big spoiler to start with for that story.
Yes.
Anyway, as we got to know each other, it turns out that you don't like spoilers at all. And you
you
love spoilers.
I love
that's
spoilers.
it. Sorry, that's wrong.
I require spoilers to enjoy things.
Yes.
And there are some people who will then call me a weirdo, but there are certain people out there who are like me, who know that in order to really relax and enjoy a show, you need to know what's going to happen.
And more particularly, you need to know how things end for characters that you might become emotionally invested in.
Yes, because otherwise,
Which is why what happened to Donna was so traumatic.
Yes.
Because you didn't see that coming.
No.
Right.
I mean, they kept trying to point. You knew it was going to be bad,
yes.
but you hope.
Spoilers.
Yes.
The same thing happens to Jamie and Zoe, if and when we get round to watching the second Doctor's era.
I like Jamie and Zoe.
I know. They're going on the A5. I might just leave some of these in just for fun. Hannah and I are currently travelling to North Wales,
yes.
very close to the village of Portmeirion. Where the Prisoner and Mask of Mandragora are filmed. We're not actually visiting it, unfortunately, but we're going there for a night. And this was the best time for us to record this conversation. So we do apologise for the road noises, signallings, and possibly occasional directions from me. What did you think of The End of Time as a swan song for David Tennant?
I don't know, because he was getting all a bit... I don't know. I have a problem with the Doctor when he gets a bit too... So the fun things about the Doctor are when he decides to run around the galaxy, madman with a box, and then sort of goes, oh, something interesting is happening here. Oh, look, I must save the universe.
Or this particular planet.
Or this particular planet, or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, with occasional moral dilemmas.
Like what?
Well, you know, like the Vesuvius thing.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Fires of Pompeii.
Do we blow up Pompeii to save everybody else? Yeah.
Yes, he's like, okay, good, world's at stake, right, fine, okay, can do this.
Yeah.
You know, he has his whole like, ooh, I shouldn't change this, and you know, and then he sort of seems to get a bit, I don't know, saviour-y, messiah-y complex thing.
Yes.
Which,
that's kind of how, but then his punishment for doing that essentially is that he has to die and become Matt Smith.
Yes. But unfortunately the saviour complex doesn't die with David Tennant.
What do you mean?
Well, because, okay, so Matt Smith starts off well, but then he end up going downhill into the same saviour complex, which, you know, then just gets gradually worse as Steven Moffat sucks the life and soul and joy out of Doctor Who.
Oh, right, okay. You've gone there already.
I find it very hard not to say that any time I'm talking about Doctor Who, because he stole a thing that I love.
Right. So this is probably a good point to kind of say where we're at with the show now. So you came to Doctor Who, you loved the Russell T Davies era for the most part. You loved David Tennant.
Yes.
You enjoyed Eccleston.
Yes.
And then we're sort of recording this podcast now as
on the cusp
as Steven Moffat's era has finished.
Yes.
You can tell that Hannah is very pleased about this. Did you always feel this way about the Steven Moffat era? When that first year of Matt Smith.
Okay, so the first episode of Matt Smith, I was like, oh, really? You know, can I make this transition? You know, David Tennant was my first Doctor.
Right.
You know, and much as I enjoyed Christopher Eccleston, there was something about the first Doctor that you watch, right? I think everyone would agree with that.
So I think that's true if you started watching Doctor Who when Doctor Who was on telly.
Right, yes, okay.
Because I never really had a Doctor, and so because I got kind of home to Doctor Who through the books and the VHSs, all the past Doctors were the Doctor at the same time.
Yes.
So I have certain fondness for more, but I can't really pin down and go, well, that's my Doctor. They're all my Doctor.
Well, yes, but to be fair, that's a personality difference between us anyway. You would never really set your sights that firmly on one thing.
This is true. This is very true.
Whereas I tend to love and hate a little bit more strongly than you.
Yeah, that's also true. Yes. Right. So David Tennant is your favourite Doctor because that's where you started.
Yes, and you know, sort of when I switch on Christopher Eccleston, I don't like to switch between Doctors very quickly. I sort of have to get comfortable with them and then enjoy the journey that they're on.
Right, yeah. So because this is what happened when I lent you those classic DVDs.
You kept trying to make me switch Doctors, and I was like, no, I need to get to know these.
We're going to do these properly. We need to kind of do a bunch of one.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And we've never gone back to it yet.
No, because
we haven't had the time. And we have a small baby, which makes it potentially makes it easier or worse. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if we were watching them at 2 a.m, we'd be right on there.
We'd be fine. So, talking of which, there she is in the back seat making a noise. I don't know whether you can hear that.
Don't wake up!
Please don't wake up!
Anyway, what were we saying?
So, So the
Matt
transition
Smith,
has
right,
happened.
so Matt
Stephen
Smith.
Moffat has taken over behind the scenes.
Yes. So
Matt Smith is the new Doctor.
I enjoyed the first season.
Yeah?
I did.
Yeah. What did you like about it?
I mean, I have probably mixed feelings about Amy,
Yeah.
but I love Rory, and more specifically, I love the dynamic of the three of them.
Right.
So, because I think often it's the dynamics, it's the interplay between characters that's part of the fun.
Yes. Yep.
And I liked, because I know you don't feel the same way as I do about these three at all.
Well, no, I would certainly say that Rory is my favourite, but that's not saying
that's not saying
that's
much.
not saying a great deal.
But I enjoyed. I felt it was a generally fun season, and it did do that. I mean, by then I probably wasn't frustrated by Steven Moffat's. We must do X number of things in each episode, which all come together to form this. Look, I'm so clever at the end of the series. Which
Right.
I got very bored with.
Okay.
By the time I had to watch it repeatedly.
So you would say that you immediately you noticed a change of direction of how Doctor Who worked in that first season. You were like, this is clearly somebody else running the show. Doctor Who has become something different beyond just the fact that there's a new actor and new companions.
I think I probably see it more in hindsight.
Right. Okay.
I mean, because I've never been one to sort of overly analyse. I tend to just take Doctor Who as a fun thing to engage with.
Yeah, which is why I'm the one with the podcast and you haven't bothered with something like this.
Yes, but I did organise a Doctor Who day in my shop with a Dalek and a quiz that I wrote. And I wrote what I thought was an easy quiz, gave it to quite a lot of my volunteers who like Doctor Who, and they said, no, that's much too hard.
At this point, I should explain that until the birth of our daughter, Hannah ran the Oxfam bookshop in Stratford-upon-Avon, which is just literally up the street from the Royal Shakespeare Company,
where David Tennant was was on stage, and so I made him Dalek biscuits and he signed books for us.
Yeah.
Not that I got to meet him, but yeah. I made him Dalek biscuits.
But you know that he's eaten your cakes,
Yes.
your biscuits.
Yes, very important in life.
Very important thing.
Yeah.
So
we're up
Matt
to
Smith,
series
we've had series 5,
yes.
and then series 6 is
More of the same.
And you're
Which
starting.
I'm still enjoying.
Still enjoying.
Still fine. Mixture.
But you're starting to kind of think Steven Moffat's style is
it's
not necessarily
starting
for you.
No, not so much.
So where did the wheels fall off?
Well, Clara. I never really felt that Clara and Matt Smith worked together.
Right.
And her storyline was so obtuse that...
What do you mean by that?
Well, because she just kept turning up as different people, and obviously then it all hangs together in the end because she goes into the thingy-wizzy thing. I can't even remember.
She goes into the Doctor's timeline.
This is where, you see, I
Via
start to lose interest.
Right.
Because I just don't
Because you can't
care
remember what
that
the plot
much.
is at that point. Okay.
Yes. She goes into the Doctor's timeline and ends up all over the place.
And saving him from the
keeps
great
ending up in
Daleks.
Daleks. And
Yeah. Did you like the Day of the
I
Doctor?
never felt that the repartee between Clara and Matt Smith worked that well.
Okay. But so
Day of the Doctor. Which
Day of
one's
the
that
Doctor.
one?
That's the 50th anniversary special that was in cinemas. The
that one was quite
feature-length
fun.
thing with John Hurt and
Yeah, that was fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then we had the Time of the Doctor
That was good.
at Christmas, where Matt Smith got stuck on a planet for centuries and then
The thing is
got really old and regenerated.
Yeah, they like to stick people on planets forever. I think that Steven Moffat's just like, how old can we make him? Like, let's just keep putting him in bizarre scenarios. I don't know.
Okay.
But anyway.
Is there anything more to say about the Matt Smith?
I think that's because he makes the Doctor more human, everyday life, but really wants us to know that he is an alien. So then has to put the home in situations where his alienness is accentuated.
Right. Okay.
I don't know. I'm talking rubbish now.
I don't know. Please email mint_dw@yahoo.co.uk if you agree or disagree with Hannah. We want to see what people think. Any other things to say about the Matt Smith era of the show?
No, I quite enjoyed it.
You quite enjoyed it?
It was fun.
How often have you gone back to it?
Okay, I've never rewatched it.
You've never rewatched it? Okay.
Whereas I've rewatched the first 4 series quite a lot of times.
Right, okay. So you were largely okay with it at the time. Things began to pale.
I think I've watched Series 5 again.
Right.
I'd quite like to rewatch Series 6.
Well, listeners will know that I recently did rewatch Series 6 and gave my opinion of it,
Yes.
which had slightly raised but not very high.
Yes, because I'd like to watch the Stormageddon episode.
Yes, which now that we have a baby, that made a
I feel like it would be more fun.
that made a big difference to me.
Yes.
So Matt Smith ends.
Do you think this is a 70, by the way? It looks like a 70, acts like a 70, I'm driving at 70.
I think it's a 70.
Excellent, let's do that. Okay, this is where it all goes wrong.
What specifically goes wrong?
He steals a coat from a tramp.
Right.
Peter Capaldi.
Before we get to that point, obviously Peter Capaldi was announced however many months before he took over.
Yeah.
What did you think at that point? Did you think, this is an interesting choice?
No, I never speculate.
Okay.
I knew the name. I don't watch the reveal shows. I don't look at the photos. I don't look at anything.
Right.
Because.
And did you know who he was? Did you have an awareness of who he was?
No,
right.
Not particularly at all. But I did the same with Matt Smith, because I'm like, until I see them as the Doctor, then I have nothing to base it on.
Right.
And because loads of people were really anti-Catherine Tate, and I was like, well, no, I want to see her as the companion.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So I had no prior thoughts.
Okay. So you've avoided all speculation. You didn't really know who Peter Capaldi was. So your first impression is deep breath, and he steals a coat from a tramp.
Yes.
And that's where it all went wrong for you.
Yes. Yes. It does. The Doctor is not supposed to steal coats from tramps, and they like every season. I don't know. They seem to make what's the word? Regeneration more traumatic, or have worse effects on the Doctor.
Right.
Which entirely varies based entirely on the. I find it very annoying how much they change it just based on how it works for the story. I mean,
well, I think that's how a lot of Doctor Who works. Is that it?
Yes, I know, but seriously.
Right. Okay.
Like David Tennant sleeps for a whole episode in the Christmas invasion.
Yes.
And then Peter Capaldi steals a coat from a tramp, which no, that is not acceptable. And even if he had done it, they had to show him time travelling back and giving that tramp back his coat, because the Doctor is supposed to have a moral code, and people prance on about it all the time, about him having, this great moral whatever, and then he steals a coat from a tramp.
Right, so
that is never acceptable.
So you won't even allow for, that was a bad moment, we never saw him write it, but is he not redeemed by the fact that he becomes a nicer person over the course of his incarnation?
Well, yeah, but I barely watched any of his incarnation, because one, he started badly, and it was going to take a lot for me to forgive him for that.
Right.
And then just the entire world became a depressing, horrible, scary place all of the time.
So what you're saying is that under Steven Moffat, particularly in the Capaldi era...
the pigeons are trying to die. Sorry.
Pigeons to the death wish there, listeners. Pigeons to the death wish. The Steven Moffat era under Peter Capaldi in particular got too dark and for you, scary.
Yes.
The show became less pleasant because it wasn't what you signed up for.
No, averagely I watch kids shows realistically because they're about at my fear level, to be honest.
Right.
And like when Steven Moffat wrote episodes, okay, he would push the boundaries of that, okay?
So you're talking about when he wrote episodes for Russell T Davies?
Yes.
Right.
But on an average, it was still aimed at kids.
Right.
And then probably, I would never let Zoe watch the Moffat episodes because they're too scary within those series, but you could still watch the series without them and it would work.
So what you're saying is that when it comes to introducing our kids to Doctor Who,
yes,
that you would be very selective about
I certainly
where
wouldn't
we would
let
start.
them watch things like Blink,
right,
or The Empty Child,
right, yes,
or The Family of Blood.
Yeah.
or Midnight,
Okay.
which obviously I don't think is a Moffat.
No.
No.
He doesn't have all the claims on the really scary ones.
No,
but
he
yes.
doesn't. He doesn't. But in general, there was varying levels. But I would say the mean level
Yeah.
was a fun. The whole thing is supposed to be a fun adventure with the Doctor, where he takes you to the past, he takes you to the future. You know that was kind of the basis of Doctor Who for a long time, and it's about having fun, and then about saving the universe.
Right.
Whereas under Moffat, it's more like, look at the bleak, terrible world that is going to happen. Oh, look, it's still really bleak. Oh, everyone's not going to die, but everyone's still depressed.
Right. Now, that's lovely.
And the Doctor just becomes, what's the word? Less fun and more, I don't know, demanding, diva-ish.
Interesting.
Self-obsessive.
Right. Okay. And this whole era coincides with our relationship,
Yes.
doesn't it? Because
Yes.
Matt Smith regenerated to Peter Capaldi at Christmas 2013,
Yes.
and you and I met at Easter 2014,
Yes.
and then Capaldi's first series was that end of summer into autumn 2014,
Yes.
and then we had another series the following year. Then there was a gap, and
Yeah.
we've now had series whatever it was.
I
10.
guess the thing is, I enjoy Peter Capaldi's take on Doctor Who. I just hate his stories.
So, stealing a coat from a tramp aside,
Stealing a coat from the tramp aside, he has had his good moments.
he's had his good moments, okay.
And Bill, I would love to have watched more of, because I thought she was brilliant.
But you gave up very early on.
I gave up very
So
early.
we watched the pilot together,
Yeah.
and then we tried to watch Smile together,
Oh, true.
and you just got too creeped out,
It's so horrible.
And you were like-
it's so horrible.
and you were like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And you didn't watch any more of Series 10.
No.
No. And so you hadn't watched Doctor Who again until Twice
watched-
Upon a Time for Christmas.
Yeah.
Uh,
Basically.
What, a couple of weeks ago now?
Yeah.
Less than that.
Yes. Which, I mean, okay, Twice Upon a Time was fun, but you knew that everyone in it was about to die. So, like, even though it was a Christmas episode, and therefore, which generally are more lighthearted, right?
Right. Yes.
Okay, he still manages to make everyone in it either dead or about to die. That is not, like, he may have added some fun on top, but at basis, that was you were watching a bunch of about to be corpses. Great. Thanks, Steven Moffat.
I mean, in some cases, not corpses, but doctors regenerating into the next
I
incarnation.
know, but still, everyone in it is about to die.
Or is already
or
dead.
a computer program and
Yes.
is already dead.
So here we must talk about the first Doctor,
Yes.
because he made an appearance
Yes.
in Twice Upon a Time.
Which I have to say, I love. Remember
William Hartnell.
No. The guy who played
David
him.
Bradley.
David Bradley. I love David Bradley, and also he's a very nice man who used to shop in my shop.
Yes, being the manager of the Stratford Oxford Bookshop had its perks, it would seem. Yes. So you met him,
Well, I mean, he used to come in quite regularly, so
right?
I just occasionally served him.
And he would
I never
occasionally buy.
commented.
He would occasionally buy
He's
books,
very polite and nice, and you know.
and was grateful that you didn't recognise, didn't show that you'd
Probably.
recognised him. Yes.
Probably.
Okay. So you like David Bradley.
Yes.
Did you watch An Adventure in Space and Time, where he played William Hartnell?
No.
So you didn't see that
No.
back
No.
in the.
I thought visually he did it well.
Right. So let's quickly bring the listeners up to speed on your experience of William Hartnell's Doctor. What have you
Yes.
seen?
Can't remember. I've watched some of the early ones with his niece,
Granddaughter.
granddaughter. That's the one.
Did I show you the very first episode,
I think so. Yeah.
but not the caveman stuff?
I can't can't remember. I think I've seen 2 or 3 of his.
Right.
Didn't they go to the Aztecs? or
Okay, so
something?
that's the one I lent you as part of my kind of 7
Yes,
Doctor
so
7
I've
stories.
seen
So you've seen the Aztecs.
the Aztecs.
You've possibly seen the very first episode, but not the rest of that story.
Yes.
And I think that might be it, actually. I don't think you've seen anything else.
Does he accidentally get married in the Aztecs?
He accidentally gets engaged.
Yeah, accidentally
yes.
gets engaged, that's the one.
And then leaves her behind.
Yes.
So,
Right, where am I going?
you're going straight on.
Cool.
So that said,
Yes.
what is your thinking about William Hartnell and the First Doctor so far?
From what I've seen, which is obviously a relatively small amount, I enjoyed. He's fun and grumpy, which I think is a bit what Peter Capaldi brought back, which is fun because it's nice to think. The basis of the Doctor is that he's incredibly intelligent, very old, very experienced alien. With knowledge that far outpasses any humans.
Yeah.
And they tend to play that down a lot, I think, through the DT era and through Matt Smith.
Right.
And Christopher. A bit more in Christopher. I don't know. Whereas Peter Capaldi brought that back a bit being grumpy, a bit being like, well, you're a bunch of idiots, really. Which, I quite enjoy.
Yeah.
And I felt like William Hartnell was like that because he was somewhat grumpy and dismissive of everybody in equal measure because they're all a bunch of idiots.
Right. But he also had a bit of a
He was slightly
twinkle about him.
acerbic and yes, but still obviously genuinely fond of his granddaughter.
Yeah.
And genuinely fond, it seemed, of the companions.
Yeah.
Without being sentimental.
Yes, I think that's
Which,
true.
again, is something that there's a lot more of, certainly in the modern series.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I have enjoyed I think what I enjoyed about Rory and Amy actually was having it's fun to have a male and a female companion.
Yeah.
And that was nice because also I feel like quite a lot of shows written 40-50 years ago actually have more interesting, often female characters. People were I think writers were more obviously trying to break away from the misogyny of general TV and writing female characters who had a lot more what's the word?
Agency?
Agency, thank you.
Right.
And self-direction.
And you would see that in the brief bits of 60s Doctor Who that you've watched?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Zoe was great.
Oh yes, because we watched The Mind Robber, haven't we?
Yeah.
And Zoe gets to beat up a fictional superhero.
Yes.
Yes. But you didn't have any particular thoughts about the First Doctor coming back and being played by David Bradley?
No, I was quite looking forward to it.
Right.
I wasn't, to be honest, I wasn't particularly impressed by how he was written.
Okay. Well, before we get to that, can I just talk about where I was coming from before?
Yeah.
So
yes.
I thought it was a terrible idea.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's because you didn't want Steven Moffat tampering with the First Doctor.
Well, that's okay. That's one reason. So I won't pretend that the vast majority of my reasons are not personal to me, and I don't expect anybody else to kind of be on board with them. And if you enjoyed the episode, then more power to you. That's fine. So, and it's funny because my first experience of the First Doctor, like a bunch of kids growing up in the early 80s, was the Five Doctors, where he's played by a different actor again because William Hartnell was dead.
Yes.
And so they had the same problem as like we're doing the Five Doctors. We want to bring back all the Doctors. Tom Baker won't do it. William Hartnell's dead. What do we do? And so they had a way of bringing Tom Baker back, and then they decided. The producer was like, "Oh, I've seen this guy. I think he was in an episode of Blake 7. Seen this guy called Richard Hurndall. He looks a bit and performs a bit like William Hartnell. We'll get him in to do the First Doctor." And because that's my first experience of the First Doctor, I'm like, okay, that's fine. That works for me.
Yeah.
But having since gone back and watched all of the William Hartnell era that it's possible to watch,
Yeah.
I since realised how much that doesn't actually work.
Right.
That bless him, Richard Hurndall does not. He has a good stab, but he falls quite short of the mark in a lot of regards, and that's my opinion. The Five Doctors as a whole still largely gets a pass because of the nostalgia value of it, but increasingly I'm of the opinion that was a bad idea. And so, and coupled with that, I was somewhat underwhelmed by An Adventure in Space and Time. And so that, and again, that's probably not a reflection on David Bradley or any of the other actors in that. I came to it in a particular frame of mind. It slightly underwhelmed me, and I haven't been back to watch it again. I dare say I don't
think it could have underwhelmed me because my expectations of Doctor Who are now so low that just terrible.
So I'm talking about Adventure in Space and Time was the thing where he was playing William Hartnell for the anyway. So I think if I went back to that, I'd perhaps come back to it with reset expectations anyway. So when I heard the rumour at the beginning of 2017 that David Bradley was coming back for the Christmas special as the first Doctor, I just thought, I don't want them to do this again because I have so much affection for the first Doctor. William Hartnell was who was. And to be fair, for me, any part that originates on TV, where so different from like a literary adaptation where you're like, well, anybody can have a go at being that character. When a character kind of originates on telly, I think I'm more attached to, and particularly with Doctor Who, because I love Doctor Who, I'm very much attached to that actor's portrayal of that character.
I would thoroughly disagree with your, it's fine if it's from a book though.
I think there's more room for... Okay, well anyway, that's a different conversation for another time, possibly. But anyway, so for me, William Hartnell, the first Doctor is very much William Hartnell.
Yes.
In the sense that it was his performance. I'm not saying that the first Doctor is like the real William Hartnell, who probably was he was very much a performance, is what I'm saying. But it was his performance, and he did it the best.
Well, he did it, and therefore
he did it, and therefore it was his. Yes. And I have to say that whatever David Bradley was doing was just weird. And I think the biggest thing for me that was missing, and this may be a product of the fact that the story was set for him when it was set, was there was none of that twinkle in his eye. There was none of that humour.
But I felt like that was more an issue of direction and writing, because I know, if you've watched David Bradley in things, he has that capacity to do it, I would say. Yes.
So it's not so much a criticism of him, it's a criticism of how he was written and how the episode was directed. Yes, that's true. And then we come to the issue, and to be frank, I'm surprised at the pass that this has got from a number of other fans whose opinions I respect and often agree with. It's just how misjudged the writing of the character was.
What, that he was a sexist?
That he was a sexist, racist, homophobe, yes. Because whether men of the 60s, or William Hartnell in particular, had those opinions, and no doubt they were prevalent at the time, the Doctor was not supposed to be a man of the 1960s.
No.
And yes, there are things that you can look at. So, in the very first episode, he refers to a savage Red Indian, which obviously is a very 1960s description, and the Doctor shouldn't have said that. And if you were writing that again today, he wouldn't say that. But for the large part, I think he's supposed to kind of transcend that period. And like you said, he was condescending to everybody.
Yeah.
It wasn't that he had a particular contempt for women.
He was utterly dismissive of everybody.
Yes.
From what I read of him, which again, as I say, I don't have a problem with.
Yes.
Rather than expecting a woman to come into dust, which I can't really see. That's clearly not the footing on which his female companions were with him.
No.
Like that, no. Absolutely not. I mean, that may have been the expectation of the writers off screen, but it was not part of any script that I've seen or any.
No, and I would agree with that. And the whole smack bottom line, whilst being a genuine First Doctor line, was in the context of his granddaughter, which again is obviously not acceptable now, but still makes slightly more sense in that context, I feel, than it did in saying it to a random stranger who he'd just met.
I guess the problem with it is it feels like they used him more for kind of comedic, out of time effects, which goes against like the Doctor Who is supposed to be out of time.
Yes.
I.e. because he's old and he's travelling.
Yep.
So he's never of the time that he's in.
No.
So to hold up the First Doctor as a way of laughing at a particular era seems pretty daft.
Yes. Whether I'm reading too much into this, but I suspect that the other aspect, given what happens at the end of the story,
Yeah.
is that the First Doctor is somewhat characterised in that way as a two fingers at fans who say the Doctor shouldn't be a woman.
Right.
And in the subtext of writing the First Doctor like that is basically saying, okay, you want to be in the past, then here's your Doctor who has these attitudes.
I don't know. I hope that much as I dislike Steven Moffat's approach and worldview that he brings to Doctor Who, I would like to think more generously of him than actually I'm intentionally going to be rude to fans who don't want the Doctor to be a woman.
Well, I would like to be that generous to him as well,
But you're just not going to be.
No. I will say I will give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. But
You dislike his characterisation of the First Doctor, generally.
Yes, and I thought the performance was just odd. So you just said something quite interesting. You mentioned the word worldview.
Yes.
What did you mean by the way that Steven Moffat brings his worldview to the show?
Well, he clearly has a very particular idea of who the Doctor should be and how he should interact with the world.
Right. Yeah.
I once read an interview with Steven Moffat, which he was saying that he's like, if he ever watches something on TV and thinks it's really pretentious, he either really likes it or probably wrote it himself. So,
right.
He's kind of pretentious, like backwards, forwards in time, dotting things here and there.
Right.
So, I mean,
but also willing to poke fun at himself.
Yes. So, I mean, I part of me wants to hate him for what he's done to Doctor Who for me, but also I appreciate his honesty and he is a good writer. I don't like.
You just don't like what he writes.
What he writes. Well, no, because I can't say that because I think he's done a lot of good episodes.
Right.
What I don't like is when he's the showrunner.
Because the whole show is then shaped by.
Because the whole show is shaped by who he thinks the Doctor should do, who he thinks the Doctor should be. And the problem I have is that more and more the Doctor has pontificated about being kind and being moral and all of those things, while acting less kind and less moral than he ever did before, when he didn't talk about it so much, he just did it.
So what you're saying is that he's become a bit hypocritical?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
I think I would agree with that. Certainly. The other aspect, and we've talked about this before, and this came up in this episode again, which was, I mean, it was interestingly played, and I thought it was an interesting angle. But this idea that the First Doctor, he says, I left Gallifrey for many reasons.
Yeah.
But one of them was to test this hypothesis of looking at the universe, evil should be good all the time.
See, I think I missed this because I was crocheting because I was too worried about everyone dying.
You were, okay. But there was this scene between him and Bill, and he was basically saying that this was his hypothesis. There's too much evil in the universe. Evil should win out against good. So he has this conversation with Bill.
It's very pretty, by the way. Everyone who can't see, there's like snow-capped mountains.
Snow-capped mountains.
Hills. They're not really mountains.
Well, I mean, we are going to be going through Snowdonia, so it will get mountainous eventually, I think.
Well, yes, but I would say these are definitely hills.
These are definitely snow-capped hills.
Yes.
Yes, we're kind of probably heading into abominable snowman country for those of you who are familiar with the Second Doctor's era. And we've just been overtaken by an impatient driver.
Well, this guy is going quite slowly. It's just I'm quite appreciating the slowness because I don't know the roads.
That's
and they're
good.
quite narrow and quite windy.
So back to the First Doctor and Bill.
Yes.
So he has this. So he's like, there's too much. There's more evil than good. Evil should win out. But that doesn't seem to be what's happening. So I set out from Gallifrey to test this hypothesis of why that is. And Bill doesn't spell it out, but the implication is, from what she says, that the answer to that question is the Doctor.
Right.
Right. That he is the sort of defining thing that tips the balance, so that good wins out against evil throughout the universe.
Yes.
And also, Bill's very clear that the Doctor never really gets that. That he never fully understands the role that he plays in the universe.
Yes, but but he gets it too much at the moment, because again it takes away from the I don't think the Doctor should think. The Doctor becomes a bit of a god once he, rather than a grumpy, intelligent old being who saves the day because he likes to be clever and mocks people, is variously grumpy, happy, sentimental, whatever.
Yeah.
He turns into a saviour, basically.
Yes.
Which I am not uncomfortable with.
Yes. Well, I would agree with that, and I think.
Because he is not supposed to be a god, and he's a capricious... That's the word I was looking for earlier.
He's capricious.
And that is fine when he's a madman in a box. It is not fine when it turns out that the entire fate of the universe hangs upon him.
Yes.
And it becomes a religion of his own sort. And he spends his whole time kind of essentially being relatively anti-religion, which I don't have a problem with, because I'm a Christian, but organised religion is never, what's the word? Well, it's full of people, and that's never a recipe for overly good outcomes.
So you're okay with the Doctor being critical of religion?
Yes,
but you're not okay with him
the Doctor should be critical of everything.
Right.
And because the whole point is, he's supposed to throw a different perspective on it. That's why he's fun to watch.
Right.
It's because he's coming. The idea is, and obviously it's very hard to write because we all come from within our own perspective. But the idea is that he's coming at things from a completely different angle.
Yep.
And when he sets himself up as a god and expects people to essentially, I don't know. I'm not comfortable with that.
Well, I mean, and
it's less fun to watch.
As Christopher Eccleston, he specifically said, "Don't worship me. I would be a terrible god. You wouldn't get a day off for a start."
Yes.
So at that point, he was very aware of the fact that this was not who he should be.
That is the Doctor that I like.
Right. And we both think that under Steven Moffat, he's become more of the powerful universe kind of affecting being.
Yes.
Which, to be fair to him, is not his idea.
No.
My thought is that this all sort of began with the Seventh Doctor.
Right.
In that, as the show was on its last legs, it turned out, the new script editor was trying to make him a bit more mysterious.
Okay.
And there was implications that the Doctor was a more significant Time Lord than we had hitherto been led to believe.
Right.
And then the show was cancelled, and I've never read them, so I don't entirely know, but my understanding is that the New Adventure books that were brought out in the 90s elaborated more on that aspect of the Doctor's character.
Okay.
And one of those that was turned into a TV episode was Human Nature, Family of Blood.
Okay.
And at the end of that, he does that very kind of godlike thing of imprisoning all the people who've been trying to get him, doesn't he?
That's true. Yeah.
And Steven Moffat and Russell T Davies both.
Where are you?
You're going right.
Whee!
Stephen Moffat and Russell T Davies both sort of came of age as writers during that period. I mean, Russell Davies only wrote one. Steven Moffat didn't write any, but they were certainly in fan circles in that period, and knew that that's kind of where the character of the Doctor was going.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of informs some of their thinking about, or at least it seems to me, some of Moffat's thinking about who the Doctor is.
Right.
And so whilst Matt Smith would assert, I'm a madman in a box,
Yes.
which I think is a very good description of who the Doctor is,
Yes.
that actually
Might overtake this dude.
what's been going on throughout Moffat's era has been informed by this.
I am not comfortable.
We're overtaking a very slow-moving car here. Yes.
On a relatively narrow road.
Yes, and we're past him.
Because it's definitely is like a 60, and he's
Yes.
doing 40. Yes.
So I think the Doctor's character has been informed by that kind of thinking, that he is this kind of he's not just another Time Lord, he's a more significant Time Lord who does, as you say, become somewhat godlike at various points, and that is the point that the show tends to lose me, and I switch off. Not literally, I still carry on watching it, but
Well, I think because he becomes a god, not it's sort of almost in the sort of Greek god things, which is capricious, childlike, old but never mature, and navel-gazing, messiah complex, grumpy and annoying.
right.
Not that I'm making sweeping generalisations, or yeah.
We are now in Wales, land of where Doctor Who is made these days, because we can now see slow written on the road in both English and Welsh.
How can we?
Yes.
It's a good thing I was paying attention, right?
You were.
I was, yes. Given I'm the driver at this point.
You are the driver at this point. We've been going for quite a while. You've been
Yes,
doing
we
very
have,
well, and
I know.
we have been waffling for about 55 minutes. I mean,
Which is not surprising because we're talking about Doctor Who.
quite what the clock will read on your version of this podcast when you listen to it, dear listener, because we'll have edited out some of the bits.
We'll have to edit out quite a lot.
We'll have to edit out quite a lot, yes.
Yes.
So,
Do we want to touch the terrifying wire that is the fact that the Doctor is now a woman?
oh yeah, we need to round off with that,
Yeah,
don't
we do.
So, Hannah, have we said enough about the Steven Moffat era of the
Well,
show?
I feel like I should stop being rude now.
Okay. Do you think that the show might entice you back when it returns in the autumn with Chris Chibnall in charge and Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor? Let's start with Chris Chibnall for a start.
Well, I know nothing about him.
Okay, so let me quickly run you through his episodes,
Okay.
if I can remember them all. So he wrote 42, which is the one
Yeah.
in real time. He wrote the
Not my favourite.
Hungry Earth, Cold Blood, which was when the Silurians came back under Steven Moffat.
That wasn't that great.
Okay, he wrote Dinosaurs on a Spaceship,
That was fun.
and he wrote The Power of Three.
Which one was that?
That was
one?
like 2 episodes later with the box
Oh,
of the
that
cubes.
was. Oh man, really? That was a lot of build up for nothing at all.
Okay, so one hit and quite a few misses. And this
Well,
is
yes, but the thing is I don't think like the skills to be a showrunner versus the skills to write an episode are not the same.
right. Okay.
Because the best showrunners pick writers for specific episodes where it works.
Right. Okay.
So I am not like I will always give him a chance.
Right. Okay. So you're not hot on his episodes, but you're like, well, he might be a good showrunner.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because the showrunner never writes that many of the shows.
No.
So it's I'm more interested in his direction of the Doctor as a whole, to be
Right.
honest.
And he's made quite a statement by casting a woman. He's
Yes.
cast Jodie Whittaker
Yes.
in the role of the Doctor,
Yes.
and we've seen her for like a very few seconds.
Yes.
She's had one line,
Yes.
which is confirmed that she's doing a Yorkshire accent, which obviously
excellent, which makes me happy.
happy for both of us because we're both from Yorkshire.
Yes.
Although our accents are not anywhere near as broad as hers.
No. Sadly.
what are your first impressions of Jodie Whittaker? What are you looking forward to about
so I
the
don't feel
series?
like I have seen enough to make any pronouncements at all on Jodie Whittaker. I mean, other than I think she's pretty. But I
Right.
have nothing.
Oh.
Whoa, yikes, we've just met a...
Yeah, I think you're going to have to reverse.
Yes. And the person behind me is going to have to reverse too.
Yes. Listeners, we have run into a tractor coming the opposite way.
I mean, we didn't run into it.
We didn't run into it.
We met a tractor taking up the entire of the road.
We did.
So, yes, but I mean, I don't particularly want to comment on her appearance because no one would be doing that if it was a man. So,
Very true.
so I'm annoyed that I've even said that.
Actually, to be fair, people did comment on Matt Smith's weird face and the fact that he was really young when he was cast.
That's
I
true.
think.
That's true. I think it's reasonable to say that I like her face. Pretty much as I've liked any of the previous Doctor's faces.
Okay.
So, in one sense, I'm very pleased that the Doctor is now a woman.
Yes.
Because I think that there is a terrible, terrible, terrible thing going on at the moment in TV where averagely you have a token woman, and it really annoys me because if you go through most of the shows on TV that have a a cast of 5 or 6, averagely there's only 1 or 2 women in that.
Can you give some examples of things that you're thinking about?
There's loads of examples that I can't think of right now. Go on. Remind me of TV shows that are on at the moment that I watch. Okay,
Bull?
Nutrix.
Nutrix has been on has gone
I
for
know,
quite a while.
but still.
Death in Paradise.
Death in Paradise. Yes, 1 woman to 3 men.
Yes.
Like most kids shows are all like all of the little kids shows that my friends' children watch are all like 5 boys to 1 girl.
Right. Yeah.
I can't remember. I had a thought. I was listing them the other day, and loads of the TV shows I watch, and I can't think of any of them now. Bull's relatively even-handed, actually.
Yeah, but it probably focuses more on
Graham
the male
Norton,
characters.
and I mean Graham Norton is real, like whatever.
But that is
That's it.
reflective of
Yes.
things.
Yes, I know, but it's still like it reflects things, but in reflecting it, it also
perpetuating it. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes. And as soon as we stop recording, I'm going to remember all the other TV shows where this is true.
Right. But this is your general thesis that there's lots of token women in shows.
Yes, because when it was announced that Doctor Who was going to have a woman, everyone went blah, 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 but like if you're anti it, then you're sexist, or you have you're too straight down the line with gender issues, blah 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 blah. Anyway,
Yeah.
but when Death in Paradise is recast as another man, no one bats an eyelid. Why? I mean, and
Or we just don't hang out in the Death in Paradise fandom as.
that's true. I don't think there is a Death
I
in
don't
Paradise
think
in quite the same way.
If you are a member of Death in Paradise fandom, please write in.
Because we
But-
love Death in Paradise.
Yes,
But
but
my point.
I take your point, yes.
My point being, and it's great that Doctor Who is kind of going out in fact, but it would make to me a lot more sense for the Death in Paradise detective to be a woman than it does for the Doctor to be a woman, because you have to then suddenly construct, and I know that Doctor Who continually rewrites its backstory, and anyone who tries to make it work really should probably give up, because there have been way too many different people with their fingers in that particular pie. But you're suddenly turning a whole society upside down and saying that people will switch genders, and how does that work in relationships? Because the Doctor is a different person every time. So I mean, how does it even work with regeneration? So I can argue myself back and forth and round in circles, but in some ways I wish they'd kept the Doctor a man because of the history of the show, and because I don't know how Gallifrey would work in purely in terms of having children, blah 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 blah. If people can switch genders.
When you say the history of the show, do you mean within the universe of the show?
Yes, that's what I mean.
As opposed to the kind of the world in which it was produced.
Yes, yeah, no, I don't care about the. I just mean that there's a big world, and that you've suddenly made. Obviously, they did it first with Missy to prepare the way for that.
Yes.
But I have as much, my issues with that are exactly the same. Also, because I don't think Missy was great. I have no problem with a female. Well, once you say okay, people can switch genders, and that you know, you can't really resolve how that works in a society, fine. But Doctor Who isn't really supposed to make sense, I don't think. That's not the point of it.
So basically what you're saying is that the Doctor changing gender, although it has implications for how Gallifreyan society worked or works now or whatever,
Yeah.
that's not really important for making Doctor Who work now that the Doctor is a woman.
Yes.
Because that's not something that the show needs to explore.
No.
Right.
No, but I think whether or not how I think this series goes. By the way, this road is beautiful, but I'm slightly scared that I can drive off the edge of a hill.
There's a very steep drop to my left.
Because I'd like to point out that I haven't slept that much in 6 months.
And if Sarah Jane fell down this, she probably would be a goner, unlike in the Five Doctors.
And I have been driving for nearly 2.5 hours.
You have.
Anyway, I guess there are so many interesting places that Doctor Who could now go. In terms of...
Because the Doctor's a woman?
Because the Doctor's a
Right.
woman. But one, I would like to see an awful lot more female writers on the show, because I remember there's a speech by Reese Witherspoon, and she said, I can always tell scripts that have been written by a man, and hopefully this won't happen in Doctor Who, because a woman turns to a man and says, but what should we do? As if that has ever happened in real life. Because realistically, in any given situation, the woman is far more likely to know what to do. That's my experience. Anyway.
Well, it's certainly my experience of our relationship.
Yes. But if the Doctor just becomes a woman and then goes around meeting exactly the same reactions as the Doctor has always met,
Yes.
and they ignore the fact that there is an awful lot of sexism in this world.
Right.
Fair enough, you could do it in different planets, that would be great, I'd love to see the adventures you can do, but if they bring her to Earth in this world and she does not hit sexism, and she does not hit people going, but what are you doing, but you can't be in charge, you're a woman, then I will be annoyed.
So you want the show to actually confront that head on?
Yes.
And actually
I want
deliberately
her,
write scenes where if it was a man...
I want her to be exactly the same as any other Doctor, to go in and try and take charge of situations, but be hit with different responses because she's a woman. Because otherwise you have wasted the opportunity to bring some reality of being a female. And yes, no, I hope that they don't go down the route that, to be honest, she would be catcalled and generally, you know, talked down to and possibly assaulted because she's a woman, because that is life experience as a woman.
Right.
I don't particularly want that in the show because it's a kids show.
Yeah.
But I do think that she should be... I think if they ignore the fact that she's a woman, that's more annoying. Yeah.
Than if they work with it.
Yes.
Okay. So we don't yet know much.
No.
We do know that they have cast 3 other regular characters.
And if they're all men, that's
No,
really
2 of them are men and 1 of them is a woman.
good. But you see, averagely, when the Doctor's a man, like, the man is outnumbered. No, sorry, the men outnumber the women. So why, when the Doctor's a woman, why don't the women outnumber the men?
So you're already annoyed.
I'm already annoyed.
Okay. So we have Bradley Walsh, who's a white man.
Yeah.
And then we have, and I've not clocked the names of either of the actors who are playing the other characters.
Yeah.
Which is terrible of me, and I do apologise. But we have two people. We have 2 people of colour.
Okay. Good.
A man and a woman. So it would seem that they're going for a diversity of gender and race.
Which is good.
Which is good.
We want that on TV.
But I think at this point we have to say we don't know what it's going to look like, and we're going to have to wait till the autumn.
Yes.
But are you upbeat? Are you hoping for a return to a Doctor Who that you will enjoy to watch?
Not particularly. I don't know. He would have to really have a different idea of what the show should be. Like, it would have to return for me to being a kids show.
Right.
With sort of, you know, instead of the Moffat era of, oh no, something terrible is happening. Oh no, it's still terrible. Oh, there's a moment of joy. Oh no, everyone's still gonna die.
Right.
Everyone's still gonna die. Maybe they're not gonna die. No, they're definitely gonna die. Oh, no one's died right now. Like, it would have to go back to, oh, maybe there's something wrong. Oh, look, we can have some fun. Look, we're in a new place and there's new things to see. And isn't this fun? And we're going to talk and laugh among ourselves because we're actually travelling the world for fun.
And we're enjoying it.
Travelling the universe.
Yeah.
And then there's some peril and then we're going to save the world from it. It would have to go back to that for me.
Okay. Well, that's cool.
There's sheep that, like, so close to the road. I don't want to kill a sheep.
Yeah, so there's a sheep just literally sat the other side of the white line chewing
Cud. With their head basically over the line onto the road.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about Doctor Who as a woman?
So I would have definitely said I didn't want it to happen. And that's more... So, I've often said on the podcast that I'm more concerned about the story working now. Like you were saying about Doctor Who having a kind of a diverse history and the universe doesn't actually make any sense.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when I want to be, I can be very much like, no, this is what the past says, this is what the universe is like.
Yes.
So I'm very hypocritical in that regard. So purely, and obviously I did an episode a few weeks ago about how looking at the history of the show we can work things out, and you can't really figure it out at all.
Sorry.
So it doesn't really make any sense in the grand scheme of things. And so, to be fair, I'd rather that they didn't bother explaining it at all, and that we just, this is the reality now, the Doctor's woman. Since the announcement, my bigger beef, as I think we've elaborated in this episode, is more to do with how the Doctor was treated under Capaldi, how Steven Moffat treated the first Doctor, such that by the time we got to the end of the episode and the Doctor regenerated and there's Jodie Whittaker, I was like, oh good, she's from Yorkshire and it looks like she's enjoying being the Doctor again. Like just from those 2 minutes.
Yes.
And that was quite impressive,
true.
Actually.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
Because although I did enjoy Peter Capaldi, you didn't get the impression that he was enjoying himself for quite a lot of the time.
No, which I'm really sad about because I think he really had the capacity for it.
I'm probably slightly more positive about Chibnall's episodes of Doctor Who than you, but at the same time, very middling. But as you say, the measure of a showrunner is not so much the episodes that they write, but how they run the show as a whole. So I'd be very interested. I definitely agree. More female writers, more female directors.
Of course.
Bring back Rachel Talalay, because although, in my opinion, she's had some of the episodes that I've enjoyed the least from a plot point of view, they have been beautifully directed. And she very much brings a cinematic sensibility to the show. And it sounds like they're continuing in that vein with the next series. So, by all means, get her back. Get a more diverse group of people behind the camera and behind the script. And because you're a woman, I'm just going to take on board everything that you've said about what you want to see, because you're going to have a better idea of how that should go than I do.
I think probably I just, like, my main thing, and I'd be interested to see what other female fans think, is that my sort of worst nightmare is a female Doctor written solely by middle-aged white men.
Yep. That sounds quite terrible. Yeah.
Because I feel like there's so much potential in it, and also there's potential for good and there's potential for really annoying.
Yeah. I would say, like you, that actually on reflection it's much more about the stories that they write at this point, and taking the Doctor back to being, well, not back to, because she's now a woman, but making the Doctor a mad woman in a box.
Yes.
More so than this cosmic figure that turns up and saves the day.
Yes. And who has angst.
Yes, can we?
I don't think the Doctor should be angsty, and I think that's what the specials, David Tennant specials, it really hit home. They really majored on the angst,
and that
and I feel like that has permeated ever since.
Okay.
And yes, I'd like a move away from the angst, please.
Okay. I guess that kind of about wraps up our conversation, really.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to say before we finish off?
Thanks for having me. And also, are we still supposed to be on this road?
Just 1 minute to talk about Doctor Who. Just 1 minute, or maybe two. Welcome to YouTube, we're talking Doctor Who.